Consumers are asking more and more questions about their food supply. Where does it come from and how it was grown? Will that change agriculture? Next on Show Me Ag. Welcome to Show Me Ag. I'm your host, Kyle Vickers. Many consumers are looking for better information about how their food is grown. Some states are passing stricter laws about food production, while others are loosening controls on corporate and foreign ownership of farm production. Like many issues in America today, we are divided. We have as our guest Joe Maxwell, Director of Rural Development and Outreach for the United States Humane Society. Joe, thank you very much for coming. You've become kind of a controversial character, Joe, in agriculture, traditional agriculture. Thinks you've really gone over to the dark side in your work for the Humane Society.
Well, I think, first of all, I'm proud of the work that I do with the Humane Society of the United States. My farm is certified under the Global Animal Partnership Program, a 5-step program, which is a humane certification program. And many of the emerging markets are the types of markets that my farm is now able to get into and sustain economically a very diversified family farm. So I'm very proud to do the work on both sides.
I was really surprised a couple of months ago, the headline issue and the cover story on Successful Farming magazine was about a new emerging consumer, primarily millennials, but really looking for some of the things that you work on. How is the food raised? Was it raised humanely? Was it raised safely, with antibiotics or without, chemical, and so on and so forth? That has become quite a thing nationwide, hasn't it?
It has, and one of the things that I think is important is those in leadership positions oftentimes in what you term traditional, I consider it commercial agriculture. I consider my family farm a traditional family farm. That traditional family farm is just like what's in the minds and the purchasing power of these consumers you refer to. They woke up one day and realized that what was going on the farm wasn't all good, and began to ask a lot of questions. That has caused some of the commercial ag leaders to begin to push back against the consumers. These are the people that purchase our goods. You know, I want to listen to the consumers. I want to raise what it is they're asking for and how. And as a traditional family farmer, somebody that's a good steward of the land and the animal, it fits right into my family's values. So I'm very excited about the future of agriculture and these emerging markets.
What are you finding as you travel around the country? Is this really widespread? Is it reaching into regular grocery stores, or is it still just a tiny segment?
Well, first, as far back as 2011, when I first went to work with the Humane Society of the United States to connect traditional family farmers with good values around stewardship to these consumers, even Nebraska, Kansas, polls in California, New York were all saying the same thing. Well over 60% of the citizens wanted to know where their food comes from and was willing to pay more if they knew that these animals were allowed to exhibit their natural innate behavior. You know, a chicken ought to be able to nest. A pig ought to be able to root. Natural innate behavior. So early on, 5 years ago, we saw that it was pretty even across. And the same is holding true today, that these consumers are aware. Kyle, as you know, one of the biggest hurdles to traditional family farming today is this huge concentration in the marketplace, this abuse of the antitrust laws that exist in the United States. It bars family farmers, traditional family farmers that are good stewards of the land and the animal, from being able to access processing, which then denies them the opportunity to get into the retail grocers. That's one of the biggest bottlenecks that we have in getting good agriculture to consumers.
And are we making progress in that regard? Have you been able to make some progress?
We have been making some progress. Obviously, we do see various opportunities in the grocery store when you go in. Eggs having to be less processed is kind of a front runner, right? Free range or cage-free type egg production, because it takes less processing. You can actually put that processing on your farm. Stores like Whole Foods has really created a demand which gives enough pull-through product to be able to sustain some of the smaller processing plants in meat proteins.
You mentioned the laying operations. Before we go any farther, I'd like to meet a couple of brothers from Centralia, Missouri, who have taken their egg business from 4-H to full-time, becoming the largest free-range egg operation in the nation.
The business actually started in the first grade through a 4-H incubation project. The class incubated 6 baby chicks, and from that project, one of the kids got to take them home. I was the only kid that wanted those baby chicks until the very last day, and then another girl also wanted them. She put her name in the hat to try to win them, and she did win them. I came home a little teary-eyed, but my uncle was here, and I told him my predicament. He ended up buying me my first 6 baby chicks, and that was how it started. In '07, I started high school and joined the FFA, and kind of part of my SAE or my FFA project, I bought 500 layers and started selling retail at a Columbia farmers market. The very first Saturday was terrible. It rained, and we sold half a dozen eggs. The next Saturday it snowed on us, and we doubled to a whole dozen. And then the third week we sold a few more. We thought about quitting and just getting out of it and not even worrying with it because it was a disaster. We went the fourth week, ended up selling 40 dozen, and we were pretty satisfied with that, so we continued to go. When the farmers market closed in the winter time, we still had eggs that were being produced, so we ended up wholesaling them to some local stores and some nursing homes. When the market opened up back in the springtime, we had to buy more chickens to supply the farmers market as well as those stores. And that's kind of the cycle it's turned from then to now. And now we're up to the point of having a little over 20,000 free-range birds, and we're the nation's largest independent free-range egg producer. As far as the free-range aspect of everything goes, actually the chickens are open range, which is actually even a step above that, but most people don't know what that means in the Midwest. In California they understand it, but open range means there's literally just no gates, and the chickens are so free that ours even do cross the gravel road all the time. So they're actually open range. We do have some that are free range too, that we have that are inside of a building to kind of keep them out of the elements for the winter, especially to keep them hot in the winter and then cooler in the summer. And so that's really good that they can stay consistent. And this building is completely automated with automatic feeders, waters, ventilation, fan system, cooling cells, attic inlets, and even egg nests, which is really nice. So the chickens can lay the eggs inside the nest, which rolls into a belt and brings the eggs to the front of the building. And so all the equipment in here actually came from Europe, over in the Netherlands, and was shipped over here and came down through Des Moines. And so all the nesting system is literally Cadillac system. It's a state-of-the-art system where everything can be controlled through a smartphone. It can send you alerts if anything goes wrong or anything like that as well. There's quite a bit that happens. Of course, there's the day-to-day stuff. There's the daily feeding, watering, health flock care and checking up on that, and just the gathering, washing, boxing, refrigeration, and then even just the transportation and delivery and sales of the eggs. But there's other stuff that happens there too. So I do my own accounting, my own just personal analysis and business analysis of what's going on with the business, competition awareness, even ag literacy. I really enjoy and try to do a lot with that, with ag education, especially through the farmers market. A lot of the customers that go there, they really are concerned that the customers that get up every Saturday morning, if it's rain, snow, sleet, whatever, and they come to the farmers market because they do care. And so a big part of the business actually is just teaching them what happens, even if it's just the basic stuff. Every little bit counts.
Yesterday I made myself a wonderful poached egg with her, and it was...
They appreciate, that the boys started this as when they were younger, and they worked their way up to as successful as they are now, and they all love their eggs too. During the winter, they're not at our market. We're year-round, and we move indoors in the winter, and they're not there, and a lot of customers are always asking when they'll be back. I think it has a lot to do with their appreciation of their customers. You hear every single sale they do, they thank their customers, and I think people really appreciate that.
For our weekly sales, we actually sell to a little over 40 weekly outlets in mid-Missouri. We were selling in Kansas City and St. Louis. We kind of backed off from that this year. We're just selling so much in this area. We're saving on gas and time and transportation costs. Some of the places we sell to includes a lot of the grocery stores in the area. Hy-Vee's, Schnucks, Natural Grocers, Lucky's Market, Clover's, C&R, Pringer's, Moser's. And so a lot of those grocery stores, as well as on top of that, at the University of Missouri, we sell the dining halls there, the Columbia College dining halls. And over around Boonville, they have a big casino, the Isle of Capri. We slide the buffet there as well as a bunch of other just nursing homes, restaurants, baking entrepreneurs, and just customers in general within this area.
It started when a customer requested their eggs be carried here. So I went to the farmers market and found them and emailed them and had a meeting with them and decided that they were a really good fit for our store. So that's when our relationship started. Everybody in town knows the Stanton Brothers now for sure. And they always come in looking for their eggs, always request their eggs. They're our #1 selling egg for sure. They even outsell our Hy-Vee Health Market brand, which I'm probably not supposed to say, but they are a very good selling egg.
And it's not really the business as a goal, it's just staying on the farm. That's been the main goal for both Austin and myself. We've always wanted to stay on the family farm, and it literally can't sustain 30 families in the future, both our parents, Austin, and myself. And so to kind of diversify and get away from it, I've kind of counted the egg business and the Stanton Brothers side of things as our off-farm while being on the farm income. So we're still able to help on the farm with the daily things with the cattle, the crops, the mechanics, and things like that. But the eggs is what helps keeps us here.
Those brothers are just a great example of what you talked about before, able to stay on their family farm, doing all the growing and processing right there, and the consumer demand is obvious.
Yes, it is. And, you know, I think it's just a shame that we have commercial ag leaders that want to put their head in the sand and ignore these consumers. Not only that, I think that the things that they are willing to do in the name of efficiency is just wrong. It's cruel. Giving a laying hen, these young brothers have figured it out. They started with just a few chickens back when they were very, very young. Congratulations to them. They held their values as traditional family farmers. But to put a hen in a space less than a notebook piece of paper size, 67 square inches, is just wrong. It's cruel. To put a sow, I've got hogs, put a mama pig into a crate 2 feet by 7 feet is just wrong. And the consumers have woke up and said, hey, that's wrong. It shouldn't surprise a farmer. But again, this commercial industrialization, this factory farming of agriculture has really set the pace that the animal is nothing but a widget. We don't have to care about the animal. And consumers are pushing back against that.
I think that agriculture sometimes is unique. In most businesses, they're really seeking out what the consumer wants and then trying to produce it. We're saying, here's what we're producing, you need to buy it.
That's right. Yeah, not all of us, but clearly the industrial, commercial, agricultural model is that we know best. Don't ask us questions. You don't need to know. Just trust us. Well, the fact is, consumers aren't trusting them.
And maybe sometimes for a good reason. In my lifetime, we seem to have pursued what we all as farmers considered a cheap food policy. And we kind of went along with that, and we have some price issues and so on. So price is an issue, and especially today with the lower end of the economic spectrum really struggling. What about the price versus quality issue? Can we raise these animals the way we'd like to and still sell to the consumer at a good price?
Well, I think the first thing is this cheap, good friend of mine, and I think you know him well, Dr. John Eichard from the University of Missouri, Columbia, now up in Iowa with the Sustainable Ag Center. You know, he has a great line, and it's just true. We can no longer afford the cheap food policy of this country. The price that the consumer sees in the grocery store for this industrialized, caged, crated, cruel meat doesn't show the full price. They externalize, that model externalizes that cost off onto society. Whether that's in Des Moines, Iowa, largest pig state in the country, those citizens are going to pay $1 million a year, had to pay $4 million to upgrade their drinking water plant in order to get the hog manure and nutrients out of the drinking water. In Ohio, we had 7 people get ill from the algae blooms as the industrial ag model flushes all that manure down into the lake. And then citizens have to pay to clean it up. So we can't afford this cheap food policy. When you take Joe Maxwell or other traditional family farmers who are good stewards, we keep those costs on our side of the aisle. So first, we have to recognize that we need to do something about making sure that proper manure management, other downwind and downstream type issues are dealt with for neighbors, for rural economies, and for all of us as citizens. The quality is always better on my side of the farming practice. We don't want the other white meat. You know, I raise pork. I want to have good, high quality, safe pork that is raised so this animal can exhibit its natural behavior. And what we have learned is if you allow them to express themselves in the process, it actually raises the quality. Temple Grandin talks a lot about that. She's an animal behavioralist out of Colorado, and really has done a good job of showing lowering that stress on the animal. You don't need to put all those antibiotics in that animal. So it's a way we can go antibiotic free. Only if the animal's ill should we be giving them antibiotics, not just sustaining their life on antibiotics due to stress. So I think that we have to be very careful how we talk about cheap food and the pricing, but at the same time, when it's done right, it's a better, higher quality.
Talking about antibiotics is a good example. We're moving towards reducing the use of antibiotics in animal agriculture by law.
That's right. Very happy that we're now recognizing in Washington, D.C. the dangers that industrial commercial agriculture has put on us as a society. These superbugs, we are overutilizing antibiotics. Another cost to society is that overutilization that this type of model has created. We see over 50%, and you can argue as high as 70% of antibiotics manufactured go into animal livestock production. The key is that when the baby first born, the minute it starts to eat, there's medication in that feed, and it's fed all the way through that animal's life. And it's enough that kind of wards off illness because of the high stress of an industrial model. But the problem is eventually the bugs get used to the antibiotics, they change strains, and now it no longer affects them. And every now and then we have crossovers into human populations. So really excited about
resistance.
That's where you get the resistance, and we're really excited about Washington taking a look at that and finally doing something. It's been about a 20-year debate, but finally we're beginning to see a reduction.
You're a former state official in a couple of different capacities, but now you're working on policy around the country. Let's talk a little bit about what different states are doing. And let's go back, since we talked about the chickens earlier, California's egg law a couple of years ago.
Right. A few years ago, the state of California passed a law that said, you know, we want these animals to be able to stand up, lie down, turn around, extend their limbs without touching each other. You know, give them some space. The citizens of California, by the highest vote of any initiative, said, yeah, that's what we want. That began to set in place a change in attitude towards the production of eggs, not only there, but here in our state and around the country. We now see more and more growth towards free range or cage-free type egg production. As a matter of fact, Fox News, now that's not a liberal rag journal, right? Fox News said 2015 was the year of the cage-free hen. We've seen a paradigm shift in the marketplace. Walmart now has made a commitment to go cage-free. Shoney's restaurant just this last week, we see these companies Kroger making these changes. It started with the law changing and citizens standing up at the ballot box saying, I've had enough. Animals should be able to exhibit their natural behavior, and for goodness sakes, they ought to at least be able to stand up, turn around, lie down without touching each other or stepping on each other.
McDonald's also, I believe,
McDonald's was a leader, September of 2015. So really carved it out. That was really a game changer due to the amount of eggs. They now feed breakfast all day,
all
right?
day long.
All day long. So, you know, huge demand, and really helped others begin to move along in that path.
McDonald's and Walmart can really drive the food industry if they make those changes, can't they?
They can. And they can also, you know, they're driving not only the food industry, but we have to remember agriculture is part of that, right? Mm-hmm. So it's beginning to drive the way we think about the production. Right now in Missouri, there's several companies looking for folks to go out and raise eggs for these types of markets that are opening, and they're looking for traditional family farmers to diversify their farm operations. So it's also an economic boom for traditional family farmers that want to stay diversified, just like the two brothers that you all highlighted today. It's a great opportunity. I think we're really moving in a way that agriculture has a very bright future. And how's it doing it? by respecting the animal, allowing that animal to exhibit its natural behavior, and caring what happens downstream and downwind to your neighbors and your communities.
It's interesting to see what certain states are doing that really change the world. Vermont has recently made some changes. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Vermont passed a law that said, you know, we're going to label GMOs. And there's been just all kinds of actions, from court actions to in Washington, D.C., some term it the Dark Act. They're going to prevent states from being able to have labeling laws. You know, for heaven forbid that a consumer should know where their food comes from and what's in it, whether that's in the meat market or whether that's in the cereal lane. Fortunately, Vermont has won out, and companies today are making those changes. General Mills is making all the changes to their product line. We're going to see a real change, I think, along those lines as well. My farm is moving towards non-GMO for all of our livestock production. We think the consumers are wanting it, demanding it. There are enough issues that are unanswered right now long term, and so we think it's the right direction for agriculture, at least as it relates to our farm.
This Washington thing is pretty tough nut to crack because there's some very powerful interest. Country of origin labeling was overturned.
Yeah, and you know what the biggest shame is here in Missouri? We're going to hopefully every cattleman and woman registered to vote. But next week, or first week of April, the department's going to be sending out ballots, and I hope everybody remembers to vote early. Very important. And what's sad is that the National Cattle Beef Association, the one that gets the current dollar checkoff, opposed country of origin labeling. For heaven's sakes, it's not right, you know, for the consumers to know where it's raised and processed. But the other side of it is why shouldn't a U.S. cattleman, a Missouri cattleman, not be able to put that brand on the package and say, look, you buy local, buy here, buy U.S., buy my beef. And so NCBA came out, worked against it, NPPC, National Pork Producers Council. So these big trade organizations that get our checkoff money and abuse us as family farmers have really worked to stop the GIPSA reforms that we got into the law here, I think 2008, and went into the Farm Bill, and then the cool legislation.
While some states are moving in one direction, other states seem to be moving a little bit differently. We passed a right to farm law in Missouri. I think we did a show about that with you. But now Nebraska and Oklahoma. Let's talk about Nebraska first.
Okay.
They had Initiative 300 years ago that kind of preserved their family farm agriculture, especially in the hog business, for a long time, and that's kind of been eroded, and now other things are going on. Talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, we lost by 2,315 votes out of 1 million. It was very unfortunate that we have preserved foreign corporations' rights and fundamental rights in our state constitution. That same argument is going on in Nebraska. Nebraska, really commend John Hanson, president of the Nebraska Farmers Union, a great leader up there for years, have fought for traditional family farms and good stewardship type agriculture. Lost a vote this year that lifted the Packer ban. Now, China Smithfield can go into Nebraska, contract out hogs, and we can see Nebraska turning in like northern Missouri or like Iowa, or the Cargills or any of them. Recently, there was another initiative this year that they wanted to put the right to farm on the ballot. Fortunately, here at the third week of March, we were able to stop that and kill that in the legislature. So very excited about getting that stopped in Nebraska. I'm sure it'll be back next year, but we're going to keep working to raise the awareness among the consumers that this isn't about your family farmer. This is about corporate takeover of the food system in these states.
And talk about Oklahoma. Still ongoing there. Got something on the
Oklahoma came out of the legislature after 3 years. We was able to bottle it up in the legislature. Came out. It's now on the ballot November 8th. I'm working with many family farmers there, the Organization for Competitive Markets. Paul Miggy is a board member. I'm helping Paul. Drew Edmondson, a former Attorney General there, 4-term Attorney General, working with them to really begin to educate the public, say, look, you ought to at least look at this and know it's not about your local independent rancher or family farmer. This is about the takeover, foreign corporate takeover of your food system in Oklahoma.
I know part of what you're doing, as I mentioned at the beginning, HSUS has got some enemies out here in the country, but you're finding a lot of farmers that are agreeing with you and your stand and with HSUS in how animals should be raised. You're finding some farmer interest across the country.
A lot of farmer interest. You know, most of farmers are farmers and ranchers, right? They're not industries. They're wanting to do it right. They just need to have an opportunity to connect with those consumers. The overwhelming number of U.S. ranchers and farmers are good stewards. And so my job is to go out, locate them, and begin to help connect them to the markets and connect them to the Humane Society so we can all work together for the kind of agriculture and food system that we want as farmers and the consumers want as eaters.
Where do you see this going? You feel good about the progress you're making?
I feel very good about it. I think, you know, it's not the Humane Society of the United States. We take a lot of hits that, you know, we're forcing companies to do this. The Humane Society of the United States, my work and other folks' work, is just about giving a voice to the majority of the citizens in this country, and I believe the majority of farmers. Letting them know it's okay not to be in agreement with everything that's going on down on the farm. I've never felt better about agriculture. My own farm has many opportunities. I travel all over the country. I was in Georgia with White Oak Pastures with Will Harris and looking at his restorative type agriculture as he brings back that Georgia area back to strong pastures for grass-fed beef. I've never seen a better operation. Mike Callicraig, president of the Organization for Competitive Markets, the work he's doing in Colorado Springs with his line of products. I'm very, very excited about what opportunities that do exist, and I think the consumers, we want them to keep demanding, and folks like myself will keep working to make a change.
Your enthusiasm and your hard work is infectious, as always, and we really appreciate your time. I know you're busy, headed to Oklahoma tonight,
Yep.
So thank you for coming by.
Thank you, Kyle.
Thank you for being with us, and also to Dustin and Austin Stanton for spending time with us as well. But that's all the time we have for tonight. Before we go, we'd also like to thank you, our viewers, for tuning in to Show Me Ag. Be sure to tune in next time for another look at a topic touching rural Missouri. For everyone here at KMOS and myself, good night. We're also very interested in what you have to say. So if you have feedback you'd like to share with us, you can email us at showmeag@kmos.org or find us on Facebook.